Today's episode is entitled A Pain in the Neck. We are going to explore, encourage, and hopefully help you navigate through setting boundaries and advocating for yourself, achieving at a high level and not apologizing for your success, and resilience.
We all face challenges, crucibles in life that make us or break us. What matters is how we respond to such roadblocks. That's really what defines us. Through inspirational stories from all walks of life, this podcast will provide you with techniques to overcome and grow from life's most challenging experiences.
And now I'd like to introduce my guest on Crucible, Mrs. Sarah Atenhan. She is a dance aficionado, dancing with Ology, Chicago Dance Crash, and a choreographer and teacher at Muller Dance Academy in Chicago. She is a college graduate with a degree in psychology and with concentrations in dance and neuroscience from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. She is certified in aerial yoga, aerial fitness, and she's a registered yoga teacher. She's choreographed a national spot for Birchbox, directed a film for satellite dance entitled By Nature, which you can find on YouTube. I encourage you all to go out there and look at it. And she edited the photo book, The Fabric of Space and Time. She is a wife, a mom to my beautiful granddaughter, a performer. She juggles running her nonprofit Satellite Dance here in Nashville. So welcome, Sarah.
Oh, hi, Mimi. It's great to be here.
I'm glad to have you. We probably should first tell. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional already.
Oh, I am too. I've done a lot. I want to go on vacation.
I know. We probably should tell each other or tell our listeners, how we know each other. Because I'm also Mrs. Atenhan, and I realized as this morning that we're both cougars.
Yes, we are. Yeah, that's one of our early bonding moments. So
Exactly.
You are my beloved mother-in-law and one of my best friends, too. It was love at first sight when I met your son in 2008. And when I met you in early 2009, it was the exact same, not the exact same spark and connection. Well,
That's good.
but I mean, we just, kindred spirits. You welcomed me with open arms on one freezing day in Chicago. And we've just been so close ever since. And I just feel so blessed and so loved by your family every single day. I'm getting emotional too.
I know. Well, that's because you are blessed and loved. And, I've shared with you this many times, and so has Kevin, my husband, Kevin Atenhan, Ryan's dad, that, we prayed for you for years when Ryan was just a baby, that we would, that he would have a great spouse, that you would be a believer, that you would be exactly what he needed and wanted. And I didn't realize when we met you that literally you were the one. And he'd shared with me he'd met somebody, and correct me if I've got the date on these things wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ashley showed up with all of her girlfriends on your first date. Is that right? Or one of your first dates?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was a first date. I thought we were going out with our coworkers. We had met at a production studio in Chicago, and we became fast friends. In his mind, fast friends. In my mind, I met him and knew that he was the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And so when he called me to go to a Husker bar, I was like, I don't even know what a Husker is, but okay, I'll go. And I just drive up, and he was waiting for me with my drink of rum and Coke at the front door. And he goes, "Come meet my sister and her friends." And I was like, who? What? Okay. And of course, I met my future sister-in-law, Ashley. And the whole time she kept hinting, trying to understand, the depths of my relationship with Ryan that hadn't even started yet. Little did I know that we were on our first date. And then fast forward a few weeks later, I still wasn't fully clear if Ryan and I were officially dating. And he kept talking about his parents coming to town and doing the architectural boat tour in the city and seeing Jersey boys. And these are all things that I have wanted to do so badly. And I was like, well, it's kind of rude. He's rubbing this in my face a little bit. Like, I want to go too. I want to meet his family. I'm ready to marry this guy, but I don't even know if we're dating. Then only the day before did he tell me, okay, so we'll meet at the train station at this time. And I thought, yes, I get to go see a play with my favorite music, and I get to meet his parents. I get to start being in the family right away, which is the plan all along.
Right. Well, I didn't even know that, Sarah, but I knew that you were special because, most guys won't introduce you to your parents unless you're really, you're the girl. And that's
especially parents from out of town, such a little time to spend together and to be included on not just one festivity, but the entire weekend. I mean, I was totally ready for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so fun to look back at that. And I remember before that, so I was like, so tell me about Sarah. And, because I was trying to figure out, are they dating? What's going on? It's just a girl. And we should throw out a shout out there to Mitch Apley, who was one of my students graduated from Geneva High School way back in the day. A lot of people will remember Mrs. Apley, who taught English forever. And Mitch actually had a studio where Ryan was going to intern. And we flew up, and met Mitch, and Mitch proceeded to tell me on the very first moment that we met that, oh yeah, Mrs. A, you gave me 2 out of school suspensions. And I was like, what? No, I didn't. I was like, no, I didn't. It's like, as a teacher, I had no, power to give anybody a suspension, and then we laughed about that. And oh my gosh, I think it was Mr. Wallach was our principal at that time. And people in Geneva will totally remember all these names and eras. But anyway, it was because of Mitch and you were his assistant, right?
Yes, I was. Very fresh. That was my first job out of college. And I didn't know anything about how to be an assistant. And I don't think Mitch knew how to have an assistant. So we were quite an odd pairing.
Yeah. Oh, those are such good days.
Times. So it was very simpler time. And man, big shout out to Mitch for bringing on Ryan, and big shout out to the guy who closed his business in New York City and forced Ryan to move to Chicago to find work.
There you go. Yeah. And small town networking as well. I think I know somebody, that would this work for. But anyway, I was headed to tell you the story about when I asked about you. I said, so tell me about Sarah. And he's like, oh, Mom, she's got whale eyes. And I'm like, what? I'm envisioning, you with your eyes on the side of your head or something, and I said to him, I'm like, did you tell her that? Because I'm just mortified. I thought, if you're a special needs person, surely he's not, going on about that. It shouldn't be an issue, and all that. And he's like, no, what I mean is she's got the most beautiful blue-green eyes. And
Aww.
He actually took out his phone, of course, and had a clip from some either cartoon or a movie or whatever. And there was the whale. And literally they had these ginormous eyes. And I thought, then when I met you, it's like, now I get it. So it was just kind of a funny, crazy, awkward moment. I'm just like, what'd you tell her?
He told me I had whale eyes. At the time, it was so embarrassing. I had developed eczema on my eyelids and my under eyes. So they were really swollen a lot of the time. And it was just I was just icing them before every date. And he said, oh, you have whale eyes. I'm like, I'm not sure what that means. And so I Googled it. And if you Google an actual whale eye, it's like super puffy and inflamed. It's like, I have eczema right now. This is very hard for me. And he's like, no. Google cartoon whale eyes. I'm like, oh, okay. So he actually wrote a song. He wrote a song called Whale Eyes for me that I'll have to get him to reenact at some point.
Oh, that's too funny. We haven't heard that one. We're going to have some drinks and hear that one. Yeah. So Anyway, well, let's dive into your story. So the pain in the neck. Yeah, this was one of your crucibles. You said you could share many of them, but anyway, I guess that's where we're going to go today. So I'll let you just take it over from there.
Yeah, so Ryan and I were married for about 6 months. So this was fall 2012, and just blissfully married. And I had finally gotten to a point in my dance career where I felt like I didn't need to juggle working in the production world. So, working on film sets where I met Ryan, I felt like I could solely focus on being in the studio, working with young dancers, choreographing. I did not have to audition as much for work, and everything was just felt really balanced. And I think it was one of the few times in life where I really felt that sense of balance. However, I did notice that there were, I was starting to feel a little bit lazy in my own practice. I felt like I wasn't quite keeping up with the level of intensity that was involved with the type of dance that I was doing, which was contemporary mixed with aerial, mixed with acrobatics, a lot of really challenging things. And I admittedly wasn't keeping up with my training as much as I should. So I was in rehearsal one day, and I was asked to perform a stunt, basically, a type of flip where I had to balance on the top of my head and flip out of it. And I had seen this trick done before, and I thought, wow, I've never successfully completed a headstand in my entire life. I remember trying to do it in high school, and I just did not understand the mechanics. And at that point, I didn't understand really being upside down. I grew up in a ballet, classically trained ballet, modern environment where upside down wasn't that much of a thing. And so when I paused right before and I said, headstands give me a lot of trouble. Is there anything else that we can try? And the coach I was working with said, no, we're going to try this. And that was, the first warning sign where I knew I had more information than he did. I knew that I wasn't conditioning my body as much as I needed to withstand rigorous physical exercise. I knew that I had issues performing, step 1 of 3 moves of this trick. I couldn't even master the first one. And so there were a lot of warning signs that went off. And I was a dancer, and I wanted to be compliant. I wanted to keep the peace. I figured if I spoke up once, that was my one chance to speak up and voice my concern, and it was dismissed. And so I thought, well, maybe they know better than I do, which was a lie. I'm the one who knows my body the best. And
absolutely.
So, I can't remember if it was, how many times I tried it. And I was also on kind of a soft, uneven surface. So I just felt really foreign in attempting this trick. And the one, I can't remember if it was the first time or not, but I went into it and I just felt my body press into my skull. And when I tried to flip out of it, I just heard a lot of crunching and twisting and breaking. Wow. And I just remember, next thing I know, I'm just sitting on the mat thinking, looking down at my body thinking, is my neck broken? Something happened. I don't know what, just this outer body experience that I had never had before. And I didn't say anything. I just said, we need to move on. And because it was clear, at that point when I tried it was clear there was no amount of coaching in that single session that would make that trick be better. Sure. So we moved on to a few other things, and I just felt the most intense pain I'd ever felt in my life, from my neck all the way down through my spine. And then after that, I went to work. I went and I taught classes. I just stood in front of the class and used my voice. And then I told the owner of Muller Dance Academy, I said, something really bad happened. I can't believe I got here, but something's not right. And so I took a few days after that trying to recover. And I thought it was just a series of muscle spasms, and things did feel okay for a while. So that was October. And then come January 2013, I woke up and I was unable to move. I wasn't paralyzed, but I couldn't breathe without experiencing the worst pain in my entire life. And so I woke up just gasping, sobbing. And at that time, Ryan was working from home and on a phone call, and he was just, he had no idea what was going on. He thought,
for sure,
she's asleep and she's waking up and she, is looking like she can't breathe. And so we went to the doctor, and that doctor's appointment really set off a series of events that, once again made me question my own, made me doubt myself, maybe doubt what I was feeling in my body versus what other people were telling me. And so we went and took x-rays, which the x-rays, don't really show a whole lot other than, major muscle inflammation. They had lost my x-ray, so I didn't receive that result for 3 weeks or so. And then out, in that time, I would be in a lot of spasm. I had a lot of nerve pain going through my arms. And when I wasn't so inflamed, I'd recover and things would be okay, until next thing I knew, I would sneeze and experience the symptoms all over again. So I took multiple MRIs, and they showed pretty severe damage on multiple levels in my neck. And because I was 26 at the time, I must have been just turned 27. The doctors referred me to a physical therapist and a neurosurgeon. Let me think. Was it a neurosurgeon? No, it was a orthopedic surgeon. And because I was so young and had a dance career, they said I was a candidate for surgery, but they didn't want to perform surgery because they were worried that, one, it wouldn't work when physical therapy could work, and two, they didn't want to go in and further damage anything, which would totally take me out of the dance industry altogether. So it made sense at the time, but one thing again was I didn't feel like I could advocate for myself and say, the type of pain and limitations I'm experiencing now are so severe. And I think dancers and athletes, they're used to, quote unquote, playing through pain. Thank goodness, that is starting to change. But at the time it was, you play through injury, you play through pain, and you just suck it up. And so my level of pain was pretty shocking and startling, and my symptoms were unlike anything I'd ever had before. But, the doctors were telling me to just go physical therapy, despite what they were seeing on the scans were a pretty serious injury. So it was a lot of, conflicting things. And I just felt like I didn't have that sense of agency, that sense of inner compass to really speak up for myself in that time. And I went through 2 rounds of physical therapy. I received an injection in my neck to help with the pain. And all that time, I was taking less and less work. I was having to take, weeks off at a time because my neck would flare up and I couldn't move, I couldn't drive. So we went from, a happily married couple, Ryan and I, to, a one income household, which at the time was, we were just starting out our professional careers and medical bills. And so I had to take a full-time job. I had to go back into that world of production and meetings and events, and which further the stress of that is something completely different for another type of crucible. Yeah. But, I just watched my dance career disappear because I couldn't move in the way I couldn't move. I couldn't dance. And what I could do was sit at a computer, which, as we all know, with age, that comes with its own type of pains. But we had to pay for my medical bills somehow. We needed health insurance. And so it wasn't until, so that brought us through summer of 2013. So at that point, it had been 6 to 9 months since the actual incident. And I I was hospitalized once because I had it was the only time in my life I experienced a panic attack where I thought that, the pain in my neck was so bad. I thought I was dying. And I was in the emergency room and they were just looking at me like, wow, this girl's crazy. They just shot some Valium in my butt and sent me home, which is what I needed. But, that was the big point where I said, I have to go back to the drawing board and see someone else. And so I saw a new doctor who is famous in his own right because he actually used to perform brain surgeries on gorillas.
Oh my!
So of course, Ryan and I were like, "Oh, Dr. Anderson, he's the guy who performs brain surgery on gorillas. Let's go see him."
Oh gosh!
So that was like our.
He can help me. Yeah.
Through and through, we're like, we want to go see the gorilla doctor. That will be helpful. But he's a really beautiful man. Him and his he had a neurosurgeon assistant at the time named Dr. Mustafa. And so Dr. Anderson and Dr. Mustafa, they looked at my scans. They could just see in front of their eyes, somebody that was just a shell of a person. And they said, we have to get you to surgery right away. This should have been done because it was a traumatic event. Surgery should have been performed right away. And when they ultimately did perform the surgery, almost a year to the date from the accident, they said that once they looked inside my neck, that it was all sorts of chaos. So they said that the surgery went really successful, and it did. There was a little bump in the road, finding out that I'm allergic to anesthesia.
Right. So I remember that.
In my recovery. That's another crucible.
Yeah. That was frightening.
Totally frightening. And another moment in time where, a team of doctors were saying, oh, just calm down. You just had surgery. So, you're just scared. I'm like, I'm not scared. I'm so happy that I finally got the surgery I need to continue to live.
Yeah.
Why am I having the symptoms? Like, oh, well, you're just upset. I'm like, but upset people don't, my whole body went rigid.
Sure.
And I couldn't move. And so that was one of the signs of that I was experiencing an allergic reaction. But outside of that, immediate trauma after surgery, it was just clear that that's what I needed at the time. And so I went back to physical therapy and I saw Dr. Mike Kelly, who is just truly an incredible physical therapist. And I saw him for 14 or 15 weeks, about twice a week. And it was just such a sense of validation at that point to have, your medical team say, yes, like we see the evidence of how much pain you're in and how unhappy you are, and we're here to help you heal. And so that was just a big turning point in the whole, or being able to start healing both physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. I mean, when something like this happens, chronic pain and being dismissed and all these signs that you're not being taken care of, it can really change you. It changed me on, I think, a really cellular level. And it can take up to 18 months to 2 years to recover from the surgery itself. And so in that time, I've had another surgery, and then I had Saoirse, our beautiful daughter.
Yes,
and then coming out of that, it was just I feel like I'm still each time I walk into the studio, I still feel like I'm dipping my toe back in the water. I have to keep learning that the body I had at 26 before the injury is not the same body I have now at 35 after the injury, after having a child, and just learning that, bodies and minds, like, I'm a resilient person. And
yes,
even though it's not, my body isn't what I had before, it also taught me to take care of myself. The way I condition my body now is so much more thoughtful, and I take so much more care in my body, and I understand the way for the most part, the neuromuscular system and what I need to do to stay strong and prevent injury, to take care of myself. I didn't have, I may have been able to do a lot of cool stuff at 26, but that was just sheer will and determination and naivete. Now I can look at my body and my practice and see it as an ever-changing system, and to honor it and to take care of it. And I feel stronger than I've ever felt, honestly.
Oh, that's amazing, Sarah. And the thing that you didn't share is that, and that I know, is that you ended up having, probably fractured your neck is what I'm guessing, but you had your C4 through C7. Is that right?
Yes.
Basically,
yes.
Fused together.
They were able, so the levels, the C5-6 level in my spine was the only level that needed to be surgically treated. The other levels in my spine did heal on their own. So there was, there were 2 or 3 levels that were problematic. C5 and 6 was where the brunt of the damage occurred. And I'm now learning several years later, how long has it been now? It's been 8 years since my surgery. And I'm now realized, I'm still dealing with pain from it. And what I didn't realize is I probably injured a level in my thoracic spine. So in between my shoulder blades, because there was so much pain and pain radiating from my neck. We assumed that it was just, pain from that. But what we're realizing now is that I probably the injury went from my neck to my mid back.
And that makes sense. Truly, it's like you had whiplash like 10 times in a row is what, at least that's what I felt like when I, seeing you before and after, and it just breaks my heart just that, to hear that mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and being dismissed, because at some point when you do have stuff go wrong with yourself physically, it starts to feel like you're doing it, you're in this mental game of what's wrong with me? And they're telling you, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just blah, blah, blah. You need physical therapy. You needed surgery, and it was the fact that you didn't break your neck is to me a total God, little angel that was over you, helping you in that situation when let's do it again. And as a coach, how many times have I done that with my own students, to say, okay, come on, let's stand up, pick yourself up. It's kind of like put up and shut up. I don't want to hear it. And dismissing them as well. So,
it's really taught me to be, going through this injury and then returning to dance and returning to aerial acrobatics. These are all types of movement that carry inherent risk more so than other types of movement. And I think through this experience, I look at my students completely differently. I get some feedback that I'm too easy on them, but I'm really not. What I'm saying, and what I say before every class that involves aerial activity, acrobatics, I say, unlike other dance classes, you do not have to do this. You can try one thing, you can sit back and watch. If you're scared, tell me you're scared and I'll be right here for you. If you say too much, say too much. And so I've really practiced with my students, them setting their own boundaries. And I say the fastest way to learn this type of activity is to sit back and to watch. Watch your peers. When you're ready, you can do it. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. There are a lot of things I choose not to do. And it's ultimately giving, especially girls, ages 7 and up, giving them a voice to say, this is right for me. No, this doesn't feel good. And hopefully it can, expand beyond the studio, because to your point, being dismissed, I think that's something that women have a really hard time especially in the medical field, just everywhere. You speak your mind and then you're dismissed and you're made to feel like you are wrong or invalid. And I experienced that firsthand so many times through this injury. But the gift is that my goal every time I'm in class is to never make anyone feel like they don't have a voice over their own body.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah. And I don't know if people actually understand, it's one thing on a podcast to just try to explain it, but the aerial dance that Sarah does is flat out amazing. And the fact that you've had the surgery, I mean, I have never watched you perform in all these years that we've known each other, right? And never knew that you had I would have never known that you had had surgery or that there was anything wrong with your neck. So you'll be like 25 feet up in the air and then you tumble down and, and all this choreographed, conglomeration of silks tied around your legs and you unwind and unwind and unwind. And then you'll land at 4 inches in front, in this beautiful pose and you're just literally static laying there and, and it's gorgeous. And as you plummet down, it's just like, you can just feel the whole audience like go, because it is that feeling of, are you going to fall or what, and then you just make it look so effortless. And then you just stop and it's this beautiful, with your legs all up in the air and, your arms, and you are just a buff person. And I would have never known. I mean, seriously, all the stuff we've seen you do and all those little kids that you train to do that, and even Saoirse at age 5, when you photographed that book, and here she is swinging from from those silks, and she's not a bit afraid. She's got these tiny little pipes, and pointed exactly perfect like a ballerina, and and I think I said to you
for it, she does, and it's going to be a really interesting challenge. She's starting today. She's moved up a class in gymnastics, and it is triggering for me. And they say in this new level, they don't want parents watching. And, it's a really hard time for me right now because I feel I'm so scared for her. And I trust her, and, we practice at home. She's a stubborn little spitfire, but she tells us when something's not right. And we don't push her through it. She says, I don't want that. And then Ryan and I will literally step back, put our hands back and say, okay, we heard you. And that's something I think a lot of girls really need. And so it's a really interesting time to watch her really take to that type of movement. And one thing that my aerial yoga teacher training has taught me is how to find a middle ground between this extreme circus-like activity. How do you find something therapeutic within that? Which is why I started Satellite Dance. Is I can look at an aerial apparatus, I can look at a silk and see ways that it can help me do things that I can't do on the ground anymore. I couldn't do a headstand or handstand before. I absolutely can't do that now. There's still residual neuropathy that I experience. And so the apparatuses that we use are tools to help your body move through space in really beautiful and intricate ways, and in ways that might not cause as much harm as, training for a marathon or doing CrossFit, although there's perfectly safe ways of doing that as well, but gives people an opportunity to wow themselves and wow other people. It's like, you wouldn't know that, a lot of the dancers I work with are on the autism spectrum, have metal plates in their spines, are over 55 years old, and we're all doing the exact same things. It's because, the training that we put together comes from a place of sensitivity and care versus pushing through, ignore your body. So I think there are different ways to get to excellence that don't involve pushing through pain, not listening to yourself. It's quite the opposite. And I'm really excited for, the next generation to come to take all the tools that we're laying down now and create a different world.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, we shared at the beginning of this that we were going to share ways of how to set those boundaries, and advocate for yourself. Because I'm terrible at setting boundaries. I think some of that is just my personality. And we've talked, both of us, about, how we're so much alike in so many areas. And for me, it was, it's becoming a strength, but it still is really hard. It sounds really pushy. It sounds really rude. I was taught never to speak back, definitely to my parents, never sass my mother. My dad was from the South, and that's just a cardinal rule in the South. You just don't sass your mama, Mm-hmm. And so those boundaries were always there for them. They were very rigid, but myself, I just kind of sank back into the background, not wanting to get in trouble, being compliant, not raising my hand, maybe not understanding, but figuring it out anyway, on my own. And being the peacekeeper. So there is a strength, and a weakness within every personality. And for me, that peacekeeping was, the bad side was just not setting those boundaries, but advocating for yourself. So, one of the things that I lived through that is completely different, but similar in the sense, was having both of my knees replaced when I was 54. And I finally got to a point where, and I asked the doctor, I'd been going to the doctor for 4 years. They were giving me injections, I was then getting cortisone, I was getting steroids, and they were supposed to last, these shots were supposed to last, I don't know, a year, 6 months maybe. And my insurance would approve it every 6 months. So I would go. And then it was like, it's not even lasting a month, and I finally said, at what point do I, what do I do with my knees? Because I had bone on both legs. And same thing, being a runner, pushing myself, long distance runner, wanting to achieve, wanting and being successful at it, winning, being a champion. And the doctor said it all comes down to, your quality of life. Mm-hmm. So when you feel yourself start minimizing the things that you do in your life, like you're parking closer to the building because you don't want to walk as far or it hurts, and he gave me this list of stuff, and I thought, check, yeah, I do that. Check, yes, I do that too. Yes, check. I sit down at every single chance I can because my legs hurt, not my legs, but I mean my knees hurt, Mm-hmm. And then having that surgery done and being in physical therapy with all these people at that point that were like 70s, 80s, and they're looking at me like, what are you doing here? In fact, they'd ask me that, and it's like, well, what can I say? I got bad genetics as well. And, but that physical therapy was the most grueling thing that I personally went through. And it was not just one, but both legs. So, and I knew if I didn't do it at the same time that I would probably never go back and have the other one redone.
Well, you bring up such a great point that I didn't quite realize myself. And I think, it'd be great for other people to hear, is that when something happens, and it could be a big event, or it could be, knees getting to that bone on bone over time, you don't notice your quality of life shifting right away. Yeah. You're just making allowances. You're saying, okay, well, I'm not going to do this now. I'll take a step back now. You'll notice yourself, you're being everything who you are is being slowly chipped away. And it takes time and reflection to realize, oh, this has gotten bad. The idea of the toad in boiling water, throw the toad in boiling water, it will jump out, but heat up the toad in boiling water over time and it will boil to death. That metaphor really speaks volumes to people, where they didn't I didn't realize how bad it was until, it took a long time of relearning that. And so I think it's really important for people to know that you could be going through something and and realize that that something is taking place over a long period of time. And then at the same time, it's never too late to get the support that you need to change that. It's never too late to change that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is what I love about being a health coach, because the people that come to me have finally figured that out. They're in the boiling water and they know they're in trouble. Kind of depends. We have all sorts of situations, but most people come to me and they're in, real physical need, and they need to lose the weight. They don't want to have a replacement. They don't want to have bypass surgery. Some people need to lose hundreds of pounds, 150 pounds. We've helped a guy lose 186 pounds, and he went from a life of just gaining weight because of medication, being on steroids, et cetera, and lost his thyroid, had cancer, survived it all, and then knew he needed to take the weight off, to being able to bike like 60 miles a day and biking in all these, competitions and long distance biking. And of course, he was like a high school 4-year state, wrestling champion at his weight level. Right. And then we have people that come to us that just are so desperate because they just, and I'll share my story. I was just miserable, hated myself, hated the way I looked. And it was all that bad body image, that I'd grown up and just had, adopted, I guess. Probably because all of my friends, we were all the same way, and just needing to lose that weight to just mentally, emotionally feel better. And it wasn't as much a physical issue. However, I did have it, problems with my cholesterol. But that's what I love about health coaching, is these people truly have life transformations, and they go from, being morbidly obese to being able to buy clothes in a store that actually, fit. They don't have to buy them online. They only have one letter. Some of my, clients will tell me, I just want to buy something that doesn't have an X in it, and I thought X meaning, like I'm thinking a graphic or something on their shirt. I didn't even get it. They meant like a 3XL, shirt. They were down to a 2XL, then a 1X, and, and then they were down to a large, and, and they were happy. So, just realizing that when it is time to make a change, and if you're making those sacrifices to not live your life 100% and not having that quality of life, it's for sure time to, make a change and, have a difference. So, and one of the things I loved, we spoke about this earlier, just you and I on a different level, but achieving at a high level, then being a female. And I distinctly remember in high school, just playing down anything that especially my senior year, because I was successful at a lot of different things. I started running on the boys cross country team because there was no girls cross country team. Had success at that. It didn't count because there was no girls team. The next year it did, set records at every single meet I ran in, because they had never run like a mile race. It had just gone up to an 800. At that time it was an 880. It was all in yards,
Wow. You were literally a trailblazer.
I was at that time. And then my senior year, I'm up for homecoming royalty. I wasn't the homecoming queen, but I was like the first runner up. So it was a big deal. I was in a big high school. And then I in January, tried out for our musical, and my best friend literally at that point unfriended me because I got the lead. And I think she thought she was going to get it. I don't know. I don't know what she was thinking, but she was not that good of a singer. So, and the gal that I tried out with, we actually, we went to a coach, an acting coach, and had her block the scene for us, and we were we were private lessons. We just done, the whole thing. So when we auditioned, then it was just like, wow, you could just literally see both our acting, teacher and our vocal teacher just be like, oh my gosh. And from that point on, my best friend would never talk to me again. So it was like, all right, I just downplayed things and was in some bad relationships where as well, people were just jealous of me. And it was so frustrating. And it's taken me a long time to come out of that, to be proud of who I am and what I've accomplished, and not, to have to apologize because I'm a female, or that I accomplished something and beat somebody else out, even if it's another female, or, it doesn't matter, but just being confident in, in that success. And that's one thing that I know that Saoirse won't have to deal with.
Yeah, I hope she continues to be vocal and proud of her accomplishments, and most importantly, she's happy for others who accomplish as well, and celebrating her friends who get awards in school or do well in gymnastics. She can watch people and be happy for them, and it's important that she keeps that. I do value, I think something that Saoirse, like our families really have in common. And now Saoirse is genuinely finding all ways to be happy for people. I see my role in my life as being a cheerleader. I'll constructively criticize, I'll help coach in my environments, because, that's how the goal in my work is to help people, progress in whatever they're doing. You want growth and you want to be challenged. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the rough, overcritical person. I'm not going to take that role as a teacher and a coach, and I'm not going to take that role in friendships either. I think people's internal dialogues about themselves are so toxic and not true. These narratives about how no one's going to think more critically about me than me myself.
Yeah.
So I personally don't need other people to be critical and judgmental of me, because there's no way that they could match the voices in my head.
Yeah.
And that's how
I get it 100%. Yeah.
And that's how I feel. That's how I treat my students and Saoirse. There's no one's, even Ryan in our relationships, no one's going to be more critical of ourselves than ourselves. And so when we are having disagreements or we're trying to grow and change, we keep that at the top of mind with everyone we work with. And I think that's why Ryan and I are in these leadership roles, is we just want to be happy for people.
Yeah, exactly.
And any other inkling of jealousy, of course I get jealous, but I get jealous from afar now. When I'm in the same room with someone, I am only of pure happiness for them, especially watching them succeed. And I think hopefully in the world of dance that we can really start to move the needle in that regard, to be in a room and engage with people that are doing well. Because you're only drinking your own poison when you find yourself being jealous of other people.
True.
And dismissive. But no, what are they doing? How could they help you? How can you find a way to be happy for them? It's just a more peaceful way to live. Yeah,
exactly. And I think mindset, that growth mindset, an open mindset is everything. And being above the line, not dipping below, not saying the comments, that's absolutely, at least that's what we do, in health coaching. And I wish I would have known that like 30 years ago before I started teaching, I would, but you learn as you live, and you go through those experiences. So, but one huge parallel is that this health coaching community that we're in is exactly the positive thing that you want in your life. And we, kind of both got into this, Kevin and I, by losing weight. We had, I literally had no intention to be a health coach. I thought, okay, I'll do it so I can keep my weight off, because that's the thing that I always struggled with, was yo-yoing back and forth. And then Kevin, of course, came home and had to lose weight because he was going to have to go on blood pressure medicine. But I thought, okay, so I'll coach him, well, now here I am 3 years later, and we just got back from Cancun from a trip. We did have to qualify for it, but we paid for the trip. It was super expensive, and it was at this beautiful resort, and it was worth every single penny that we spent, because we got 3 hours with the top 2% of the company. And by qualifying for this trip, I guess we were part of that 2%. So that was really, an encouragement to me. But those people there truly are advocates for wanting the best for you, for being happy for you, for not being competitive, or, oh, look, there's just none of that negativity. And it's such a breath of fresh air, to to be around people that really are wishing you well.
And there's, a commonality with everyone being successful at that level and that within that organization. So it only makes you as a person more successful when you're looking out for the best interests of other people and for yourself. It's about finding, again, with us and our boundaries, it's about finding that balance, of course. How much are you giving yourself to someone else, to your client, versus how much are you taking in? I think that will always be a lifelong journey for me, especially because I might get stuck in that wanting to give and praise and coach and cheer and lift other people up, so much so that I look into myself and it's like, well, maybe I need to do that more for me right now. Yeah. And so I kind of speaking of yo-yoing, I yo-yo emotionally. I always tell my students about budgeting their energy, and it's all these things that I just need to say to myself, because I do think that, the more I find that balance and the more successful I'll be for them if I find that balance within myself.
Yeah, and that's very true. And that is one of the topics that every single person would comment, to us individually on, was just that emotional energy and managing it well. And I've never thought about mismanaging my emotions until I got, into this organization and, into our life book. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is something I should have done, years ago, but thank goodness I can do it now because yay, I'm so, and I've always been grateful and thankful for everything that, God has blessed us with. And we really tried to raise Ashley and Ryan both with that attitude of do your best, be, and be happy for other people, congratulate and be the first one to go up to them and shake their hand or give them a hug or whatever. And I think that is truly shown, they have lived out that, I think that, premise, at least that goal that we had for them. So
I can attest to that as well. I feel that both Ashley and Ryan are two of the most amazing people I've ever met. And I love spending time with both of them when we get together for holidays. I don't think they realize how much I'm sitting back and observing them and watching them be parents and watching them be kind to everyone and listening to them about their work and how they think about things. Because I'm not, as much as we have in common, I'm not wired that way. They give themselves so much patience and grace, and they give other people so much patience and grace and praise. And they're so successful, the best at what they do. And when I'm with them, instead of sometimes I feel a little intimidated by their level of accomplishment and their ability to sleep and their ability to sleep so well at night. I would like to, it's a healthy amount of like, okay, all right, maybe I this can be an inspiring moment. Watch them, see how they do it. And is there any sort of takeaways? And they do it with so much sunshine in their hearts. It's just sweet. Yeah. Incredible. And so I'm just
very true.
And the Atenhan family, well, they make me better.
Well, Sarah, you make us better too. And I appreciate you being here today. I'm not sure we probably have to close here, but I do encourage everybody to set those boundaries and advocate for yourself because, you're worth it, right? Mm-hmm. God created us in his image. And if that's not a reason to advocate for yourself, I don't know what is, so I love that. Anyway, well, thank you, Sarah, so much. And I appreciate it. And thank you to all our listeners, for tuning in today and listening to the Crucible. So there'll be more coming next week. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.